Alrighty, my friends, I just wanted to share a quick example of the power of synchronicity, just in an everyday example. Something happened today, and I wanted to share that. And maybe you can relate to this everyday example. Do you want to join us for today's video? Come on. Tommy, come on. This is Tommy. You haven't met Tommy yet. So anyway, I went to the gym today. And I just want to share with you how synchronistic events can really come together to really show you the perfection of the universe. This is just an everyday example in my life, something that just happened a few hours ago. And just to show you how on so many levels things are working perfectly. If you can use this example or get some ideas about, maybe I can frame a situation that has happened recently or is happening in a synchronistic kind of way, I think it'll help. It'll add something beneath the thinking and the law of attraction, as you know. I am a fan of the law of attraction. However, the example I'm going to give you is going to show you how you couldn't even think about this. There was no way that you could even predict that this was going to happen. So anyway, I go to the gym. I was working out. And, it just happened tonight. I went in the evening. And so it was pretty interesting because I was walking. Come here. So anyway, I was driving my car, okay? I was going to the parking lot, and I was pulling in, and then I saw a worker there at the gym. And so he basically summoned me. He said, come on over here. And I looked, and I said, do you have a new ride? That's a nice ride. I saw a car. And he says, no, my friend is here. Why don't you meet him? And so the friend looks down at my car, and I'm pulled up exactly at the angle like this. Exactly. I turned left into the parking lot, into that row, and then this friend of his is looking exactly at the bottom right of my car. And what does the friend notice? The friend meets me, is very courteous. Friend is seated in his driver's side seat, obviously. He looks over there, he says, I don't know if you have low-profile tires or if your tire is flat, but you might want to get that checked out. And I looked, and sure enough, there was barely any air. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal, right? It's a chance, except I was going to pull in the first row, not the second row. But he had told me, okay, I just want you to see, this is just, we're warming up here. So he basically said, why don't you, look at your tire? And so I did. I got out of the car and I looked and I said, it does look kind of low. And the thing is, tomorrow I'm getting ready to go to see a Kentucky Derby event with a friend. I'm going to go see it on TV. And so it was interesting. I was going to drive about 15 miles or so. And you might think in the long-term perspective that maybe this is irrelevant. These are just meaningless events. But then here's what I want you to see next what happened. It's really interesting. So I knew that I had to take it to the tire shop. I got to take it tomorrow. And so I ended up going inside. And, first of all, I thanked him. I appreciated it. And then, by the way, the worker needed a ride to the grocery store. I took him there, came back, and then I just basically went inside, and there was a worker, a maintenance worker there, and so I was on the dip machine. And then the maintenance worker said to me, he was walking by, and I was listening to my music, and I was thinking, earlier what I was told, I was going to have to go to a gas station or get it fixed or go tomorrow, but it was getting real low. And so all of a sudden, my thinking was interrupted. And I watched this because, you're listening to a song, you're thinking about things, and just kind of my thoughts are drifting a little bit. I was kind of in a daze. And then all of a sudden, this voice came into my head. All right? And this voice said, ask him about the air pump. I'm not going to ask him about the air pump. This is a gym. So I argued with the voice. All right? And this is how it usually happens for me. I'll get some other voice or something. What it does is, and you'll notice it too in certain cases, and maybe if this is how you receive psychic information, it'll interrupt your thought. So I said, what do you mean? This is a specialized, air pump for the car, right? It's like, why would he have one? And he had one, okay? So then he says, actually, I just remember that I do have a pump. So the worker went to the back, all right? And he came back, but he said, what I've noticed is it's damaged. And I said, okay, maybe that synchronistic event didn't need to happen. I was supposed to go to the gas station. You don't want to read too much into it. But then what happened was next was really interesting. Another worker had overheard him say that and said, you know what happened? She says, I have a pump in my car. And she says, I can help him. And it worked perfectly. And what was interesting is, on the one hand, you'll see how everything kind of worked out perfectly. So we go to my car. She fixes basically a tire. At least it's fine to get to the shop tomorrow. And she says, you know, I want to tell you, I took 7 trips into my, now just look at how perfect everything is. You might say, well, this is a coincidence. She says, I took 7 trips into my kitchen, and she said into my house, and just dropped everything off. She says, but you know, I left the air pump in. I didn't want to take another trip. And then she says, you know, it was something that just kind of, she said she had a thought that just said, leave it here, you might need it again. You know, and then she was thinking maybe for a bike. But just understand the synchronicity. She had the pump at exactly the right time. By the way, the guy that I took to the grocery store, whose friend had noticed it in the first place, he normally has a car pump in his truck, in the back of his truck. He said that day he forgot it. So it's amazing because he couldn't offer me the pump, which meant that a whole series of events had to happen. And then finally she got my tire straight. She even had a tire gauge. She says this is the level. It was all perfect. But what was interesting is then she had questions. We started talking about careers. And she thought that this career situation was random, and she shared it with me. And then we talked about, well, are things really random or not? And she had, you know, I shared with her the idea of soul contracts, about she has a relationship, about the place that she lives in. And so she got some knowledge from it. There was some conversation. We had a dialogue. And then she had a new perspective on her career. Now, if you hear her career situation, again, this shows you on how so many levels things are working out perfectly. She was a contractor at this company she wanted to work at, but she was getting ready to quit, stop the contract, you know, finish her work there, because she didn't see any advancement. And she was at another place where she was employed, but she said she didn't see any hope of getting up there. So now that company, what was interesting is, she was there, she was at contract at the other place. And so I think she was part-time at one, I'm not exactly sure, but then contract at the other. So then she's going for interviews, and then everything is going really well with an interview, but then a voice told her, something inside says, no, don't go all the way. Now this is where the law of attraction kind of messes up, right? Because the law of attraction says, if you want it to be successful, you can have it be successful if you put your mind to it. Well, what it doesn't tell you is it good for your highest good? Is it for your highest good? In other words, for what you need to be doing. So there's a voice that told her not to pursue it. She was getting ready for the second interview. So she said no in blind faith. Okay, this is very important. There was no opportunities. You know, she had received in the contract position, she had heard, you know, some months before, she said 6 or 7 months before, one of the workers told her, because I asked her, I grilled her with questions before I said, and I got her permission to talk about her story on the video blog, in this video blog. And she said, you know, what was interesting is, I did, but I thought that, you know, there was one person who told me that she could help me, but it kind of fell through. I never heard from her. I kind of forgot about it. And what happened was she was on her way to the bathroom. She had a tendency to drink a lot of water. She said, and so she would pass this one man, all right, that was a worker in another department or something, and all of a sudden he stopped her, and she said, this is after she turned down the second interview, okay? She had been wanting to be at the contract place. She had wanted to go higher with them, but she kind of let it go. She thought about it and released. So then what happened was this person said, when are we going to talk about your career advancement? Where would you like to be in this company? And she was like, what are you talking about? She was on her way to the bathroom. The guy interrupted her, didn't know her career plans. Okay, isn't interesting, isn't it? And then another person said something. And notice she already said no to the second interview of the other place. She said, you know what, I appreciate it. I think this is not the opportunity for me. But the money would have been good, the advancement, everything on paper looks like that should have been it. The law of attraction, she attracted it, she put it out there, that should be the one. And guess what? The one that she wanted is working out. But it wasn't open until she closed the other one. And then you got to ask yourself, wow, isn't the universe perfect? And she says, well, I haven't gotten the job yet, but she says it looks like it's pretty promising because she's already been approached by 2 people. And remember, there was that one from 6 to 7 months ago. So what I'm trying to say is, let's retrace everything here. I drive exactly in one spot. A friend, the worker summons me to come that way. I drive exactly how I need to be driving. I didn't pull in. There was actually a spot I could have pulled in and got out of my car, but for some reason I stopped. The guy looks exactly where he needs to at my tire. I got an event tomorrow. I needed to make sure. I didn't even know about the tire situation. I had no reason to think about it. You know, I had no reason to say, I want my tire taken care of. Maybe I had a larger intention that I'm driving safely. But what I want to share with you is that happened at precisely the exact time that guy was there, because then he left shortly after, the guy that noticed it. And then I took the guy to the grocery store, came back, the whole thing with the workers, the one guy, then the broken pump, right, the crack, he needs to get that fixed. The other person basically says, I have a pump. She asks some questions, she gets some answers that she'd been wondering about, and it all works out. And here's what else is impressive. That pump was in her car before she came to work. That, I'm telling you, who's moving the chess pieces around? She said she lived a few miles away from the gym, but I didn't go to the gym until after it started. I was already like close to closing time. I was already 2 to 3 hours probably, or 4 hours into her shift. I'm just saying, it's amazing. So it's almost like, well, even if she had that in her car, the timing that guy would have noticed so that other things could have fallen into place, the questions she had that were answered, is just incredible. So this is a simple, everyday example of synchronicity. So what I want to ask you is not that you have to do anything differently, but can you agree to the fact that there's more than just your thoughts? Can you agree that it's so incredible that how perfect everything is? It's amazing. The synchronicity. It's just all those 4 or 5 events, and they synchronized exactly for something that I didn't know about. You've had something that you didn't know about. Somebody points it out. Hey, what about that? You didn't even know about it. You had no reason to put your intention out there, right? You didn't consciously put a direct intention for, I wonder if, because you didn't even know to ask. And it just tells me that we're being guided. It just reminds me that we're being guided, that everything is perfect. It really is perfect. That the spiritual base can underline your thoughts. And it can flow. And it also tells me that are we truly thinking what we're thinking, free of that spirit? Because I've asked some of these people, did something interrupt your thoughts? Like with me, it's a separate voice. And for other people, it's an intuition. That it's separate from the voice, but it's a feeling, but it's something similar. However it is for you, listen to that nudge. Because had I not asked that maintenance worker for the pump, when I thought it was ridiculous to ask him, I actually debated asking him, and I didn't want to ask him, and this is ask him. And I argued with it. That's how it happens for me. And it's pretty incredible. I mean, I can go into more stories, but it's incredible if you ever think about how things come together and just work out as they should work out. So follow those inner nudges. Follow your intuition. Follow the voice, however it comes. Follow the feeling, and pay attention to the grand scheme. Now, this is just an everyday baby example, but I was so excited. I was like, I got to post this. So it's an everyday synchronistic event, and it shows you how different events come together at exactly the right time and space. And they happen for everyone's highest good. It's just amazing. Well, anyway, I'll let you go. And if you want to post an example of something below in the comments section, or have a video response of how you have synchronistic events that come together, please put them in there, in the box, and share your story. I'd love to hear, and other people would love to hear as well. All right, thank you so much, and have a great night.